The gift of AI is going to be us finding our authentic voice. And so that people can discern, is that you? And again, this is that, who do I want to be hanging out with? Who do I want taking my pictures, doing my art,
Yeah.
whatever that gift is that you're bringing, they're choosing based on you.
Welcome to Tried and True with a Dash of Woo, where we blend rock solid tips with a little bit of magic. I'm your host, Renee Bowen, a life and a business coach, professional photographer, Diet Coke lover, and mom of 3 grown kids. Here to walk you through all the ins and outs of identity based marketing and how to run a business that feels like freedom. You know that feeling when you've planned a launch or something new in your business and you've done all the things, the emails and the posts and the strategy, all of it, and it just doesn't really land the way that you thought it was going to land. And you just kind of sit there thinking, okay, what did I do wrong? What if the answer isn't what you did, but when you did it? So my guest today is Sheri Moise, and she is a business astrologer and a strategist with 25 plus years in sales and marketing, which means she's not somebody who just stumbled into astrology from like the mystical woo-woo side of things. As much as y'all know, I love the woo-woo side. Okay. She built a career on data and strategy first, and then she discovered that there's like this entire layer of timing intelligence that most entrepreneurs are completely ignoring. Sheri created the Success Planet Diagnostic, and she's also the author of Success Scopes. And her whole thing is data over drama. Okay, she takes the astrological cycles and turns them into actual plans. It's not just vibes, it's actual plans with dates and priorities and decision windows. And those of you who know me, even just a little bit, you guys know I've been obsessed with astrology for most of my life. Like I was that girl coming home from the bar, cracking open Linda Goodman's love signs with my roommate Sharon, talking about all the guys that we met and looking up their signs. Because of course, yes, even back in the 90s, we were asking boys what their birthday and times were. It's kind of amazing how many people actually knew that or were able to get that information from their mom pretty quickly. So astrology and human design are both woven through most things that I do, and even the way that I show up for this podcast. And I've actually never had an astrologer on the show, which is crazy because it's like one of my favorite things. But today is basically a long time coming. And the reason I asked Sheri to be that astrologer is because I really feel like she bridges that gap really well between that mystical side and the business side, the strategic side. And again, that's what my show is kind of all about. So, what I love most about her work is that it solves something that I watch a lot of my clients struggle with all the time, which is, they think they're bad at business or they think that they're doing something wrong, or really they're just operating on someone else's calendar, maybe forcing things to happen in windows that weren't really designed for them in the first place. And so that mismatch will cost them time, energy, results. But nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong with you, right? It could just be the timing. So we're going to talk about all of this today. And we do so in a way that I feel makes sense to you as an entrepreneur, as most likely a creative. And whether you have never even like looked at astrology to, your big 3 and what planets are in different houses, this is for you across the board. I think that no matter where you are in your astro curious journey, it's going to really be impactful for you. So I'm excited to share it with you. Let's jump in. Hey, Sheri, thanks for being here with us. In all the years that I've been doing this podcast, you're the first astrologer, which is crazy because, as you guys know, if you've been listening to my show or you know me at all, you know that I am like an astrology girly. So thank you and welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be the first, and I'm sure not the last, but I'm grateful to be here and excited for this conversation today, Renee.
Awesome. So, okay, you have an interesting background, which I love. And I want to kind of just dive into that for a second because you spent like 25 plus years in sales and marketing and then this astrology thing. So tell me a little bit about how that happened. Like, obviously that wasn't like, it doesn't sound super conventional, but kind of walk us through like what brought you to that world.
I was always personally astro curious and, probably back when I was a teen, or in my 20s, like trying to figure out, oh, what's the right romantic match, right? Is this guy a good fit and things like that. I think I had the birthdays book and the relationship book. And so it was always kind of under the surface, but I lived and moved through traditional corporate world, mostly in retails. If you can think of a major retailer, I've called on them. And so when I decided that I was going to move out of corporate and into my own business, one of the tools I used was astrology. I had have a very good friend who's an astrologer, and we were looking at my chart for where those connections were. And so it was under the surface the first couple of years. And then I started following the woman who's now my mentor and who I've done my business astrology certification through. And now I'm working on my master's. And I was looking for something that would help ground me into the doing as an entrepreneur because there were just a million choices, right? A million things that you could be doing and what works and all the different things. And as I was learning that for myself, I got really curious and started looking at my clients' charts when something was going on and realized that I could fairly read intuitively, like I would pick things up. But the bigger lesson in it for me was that it gave my clients permission. I say that this as a tool is for clarity and confidence more than anything. And so when my mentor offered the certification, my good friend Denise, the astrologer, was like, Sheri, go do it because you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like, take what she does and make it your own. Well, I've been in that program almost 5 years between now working on my master's, but 3 years ago or so, I kind of put my flag in the ground and said, this is really where I think I can make the most difference by bringing astrology to the business world because what I knew about sales and marketing from my years in corporate was such a huge opportunity for actually the data under the surface that astrology has to offer. And so that's really been my focus, marketing, planning, and really helping my clients do it in a way that's going to keep them top of mind with their audience, that's going to keep them well resourced. So that's the Reader's Digest version, maybe.
Yeah. I find that super fascinating, especially the data, right? Underneath all of it, like you said. And I think you always say like data over drama, right? So
Yes.
let's talk a little bit about why most people, well, maybe not most, but a lot of people might hear astrology and think the opposite of data, right? So I kind of want to reframe that a little bit and
Yes.
explain what you mean by that for my listeners.
So this is where I'll try not to be on my soapbox too much because this is one of the things I'm really passionate about is that, the world that we live in today, this very structured calendar year, work 40 hours a week is relatively new in terms of historical the historical world, the world our ancestors lived in. The Industrial Revolution, the Gregorian calendar are only 400 years old. For millennial, our ancestors worked with cycles and seasons, and they saw these predictable patterns. They were tracking the movement of the planets, without the modern day tools we have. And they lived in that way. They knew when it was time to rest. They knew when it was time to work. There were no forced constructs on them. And so within that, my belief is that we are better off when we are working within those natural rhythms and cycles, both our own natural rhythms and cycles and then collectively. But those cycles are filled with data because they're cycles, because they repeat. It's like if you were to put an offer out in the world, right? And you get some data and then you put it out again, you get more data, right? You're learning about what works and what doesn't because these cycles repeat, whether that's every 2.5 days for the moon, it's just a cycle into a different sign, or the sun signs move every 30 days. whatever that is, we have data. That's why we can all say, oh, you're an Aries, I'm an, we have these similarities because there's cycle underneath that. And then when we take it even a layer deeper, we can really look at marketing cycles. We look at consumer behavior cycles because different planets and different transits will give us information because they repeat. We know what it's like when Mars is in Aries because we've seen it before multiple times.
Yeah, that's just so cool. Okay, we're going to break that down in just a little bit and kind of in a few minutes. I do want to kind of talk a little bit about what is coming that you've been talking about over on Substack. And we'll kind of get to that in just a little bit. But before we kind of dig into that, you use that information like about these marketing cycles, but you also use a person's natal chart as well when you kind of put together what you call that astro strategic plan for your clients.
Right.
And so I kind of want to talk a little bit about kind of what goes into that and why those things are important for an individual.
Absolutely. Because, the big thing is we're each uniquely wired and designed. And your natal chart is this beautiful snapshot that tells us your natal wiring. And so there's so much within that chart, above and beyond your sun sign, your moon sign, your rising sign, that can really tell us so many things. Not just how you're wired, but also what you're moving through, what's happening, where the focus is. So one of the ways that is such an integral part to me of building, managing, moving through your business in a way that creates a whole lot more ease. Because my power periods are going to be different than yours, Renee, based on the chart, right? So one of the ways that I have been, you know, playing with this and continue to refine it over the years is leveraging the person's what I call their success planet. And so a lot of people will talk about like a chart ruler. This is different. It's a really old astrological tool from Hellenistic astrology that shows us where all the energies in the chart move through. And I had been doing sun cycle planning with my clients before this. So 30-day quarterly containers. We were following the sun's movement through your chart. And there was just something that wasn't landing. Like it wasn't always working for people as well as it could have. And then when I learned about this other tool, which is you can't just go and Google it and make it, look it up. I was like, I just kept that, you grab onto something, Renee,
Mm-hmm.
like you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that thing, like I need to know more. So I went down this rabbit hole and I started to realize like one of my clients was Venus ruled.
Mm.
And if she was not aligned with desire, like at a heart level, that's not going to happen. Like she's just not going to do it, or she's going to struggle through it. And there was a different cycle. Venus cycle, 18 months, there's 9 months cycles within that cycle. There's cycles within the cycle. And when I started pulling this through with my clients, it made a huge difference. It gave them, we're not all meant to work in, I bristle when you're like, tell me your annual plan, like commit to your numbers for a year. I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
Um, I'm Mars. Mars is my success planet. Mars moves in 6 to 8 week cycles. It, and they all have an internal, external ebb and flow. And so that to me is like top of funnel for how I support folks with understanding how they're wired. It tells us how we plan, how we get motivated, how we're meant to really work in our business and what we need to lean into and lean away from. And that creates this beautiful roadmap um, for folks to build in their own cycles. Mercury people are building in 88-day cycles. Mars people 6 to 8 weeks until we hit a retrograde, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm seeing so much more success with my clients since we started looking at it from that perspective.
Okay, yeah, that does. That makes a lot of sense. And I know that this can feel like kind of overwhelming to people who may not understand. Like, I think a lot of the people listening probably don't have a deep understanding of just astrology in general. Maybe they know their big three,
Hmm.
like I'm a Virgo sun, Libra rising, Aries moon sort of thing. Those are mine.
Right.
And then we start hearing, about things like this, like Success Planet, like that's your diagnostic sort of piece that you use that you have found that make a really big difference. Then I've heard other people talk about it's your midheaven and where that is and how that's kind of like how you show up in your work. And it's so interesting. So I in general, and it is a rabbit hole. It is
Yes.
a lot of information and it can feel pretty overwhelming, I would say, to a lot of people, which is why we look to people like you to sort of like make sense of all of these different pieces. So if someone is sort of like in that boat right now and they're like, okay, I know a little bit about astrology and I'm interested I'm astro curious, like you said, which I feel like a lot of my audience is, without overwhelming, right? Like if, like without kind of like putting them on a path of like, okay, go stress yourself out on this. What is like sort of like the easiest thing for them to just start leaning into a little bit? You know what I mean? Like whether it's something that might make a bigger impact for them, especially in terms of, let's say, their business, like maybe launch periods or doing something new or pivoting or something that like could be sort of like big on the horizon for someone, let's just say. What is something that they would want to be looking into? Obviously, probably it would be something like this, a Success Planet.
Hmm.
But like, if you have any other tips for people, what would they be?
Again, that it's so multi-layered. Like
Yes.
I wish there was like a one answer, like
No.
go unlock this, and there isn't. There are, and I'm actually going to publish. I was actually putting some notes together this morning about like this, about what are those major transits.
Mm-hmm.
So transits being, as you've got your natal chart, but then the planets are all going to continue to move in those cycles around the chart and have conversations with your natal planet. Your sun is in Virgo. All those planets are going to come around and visit your sun and have a conversation with it. And it's meaningful. It's going to impact, how your focus, etc. There's a lot of very impactful transits, especially in your 40s, from like 38 to 50. It is I think about it as like a reinvention period
Mm.
in terms of, who you are and how you show up. It's like we get stripped back. And then I say, by the time we get into, I'm in my you know, mid 50s and we're in the bucket phase of life at this point because we've been through
Yeah.
so much. So I think, you know, knowing when those big life events are coming at you, because as an entrepreneur, it can throw you completely off base and you can be like, I'm going to burn my whole business down
Yeah.
when it's not necessarily what you need to do. And so I think a session with an astrologer you can say, hey, I want to know in the next 5 years, what are the major things that are going to come my way? This is one of the first things I do when I work with somebody and we're building out a plan. I'm looking at first how they're wired at a core level and like what you're leaning into. Like you're talking about your career line. Like mine happens to be in Aquarius. So astrology is a fit because I'm wired
Mm.
for it. Astrology is ruled by Aquarius. But there's usually all that is confirmation because you just are who
Yeah.
you are. So it's like, what's coming at me on the personal side that I need to know, like big picture. And then the next layer, like if you know your success planet, then we know like how to leverage, your Mars cycle or your Mercury cycle or Venus cycles for building your business and or sustaining it or polishing it, whatever's meant to be happening. But I always tell people like I'm the astrologer you come to if you want it from a business lens. If you just want a chart read, I got
Right.
great resources for you, and I'm sure you do too. But what do you need is the first question to ask. Like, if you go to somebody, and you could look them up. LLMs right now are not good at astrology. And for this,
Right.
especially business astrology, there's not a lot written on it, etc. So big picture. What are the big things coming at you in the next 3 5 years or whatever period you're looking at so that you can lean in or just know as it's happening, if you're having your Chiron return, which happens around
Exactly.
50. It's a big deal. Like we're scratching at your deepest wound. You're having your Uranus opposition. You're going to want to break the mold. Like there's just things that when you know they're coming, it's easier to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. And those are specific to people's charts. Like I want to just kind of make sure, because in a second, I do want to kind of talk about these marketing cycles that just, more of like what you're kind of seeing with the marketing cycles of things. But when you put this together with someone's individual chart and their transits, like you were talking about, that's where you can make some really intentional and specific planning. And that's what you mainly specialize in, especially when it comes to business and how that, because I always talk about this, like, your business is an extension of how you feel, right? And
Yeah.
so if you are not feeling aligned, and I also use, like human design in my coaching as well, which astrology is part of that system. And I see it all the time. Like, yeah, like you said, it's confirmation. A lot of this, it's like you've already been doing a lot of this, probably. You've already, kind of been on that path, but it's about like, I call it taking out your highlighter and like
Hmm.
highlighting these pieces and being intentional with them, because that intention really matters, just like language really matters, and how you do certain things that only you can do, and understanding like, oh, the timing for me for this specific launch or offer or whatever that I want to do, it would actually
Yes.
be more ideal during this time frame because I've got this transit and et cetera.
Yeah,
That's
or yeah, yes, exactly. So if I work with a number of people who are doing book launches, right?
mm-hmm,
And launch strategy is part of, and it's really about timing and strategic being like, when's a good time for Renee to put this book out into the world, right? And so we're looking at, you know, there's an area of life. The chart is in 12 houses. So those areas of life are what tell us, hey, let's go write the thing during this phase. Let's go publish it here. And it's really magical when we can lean into those times. It just creates so much more ease. Whenever somebody's coming to me and they're stuck, they're feeling like this tug of war, it it generally 9 out of 10 times they're pushing against something that's asking them to focus elsewhere right now.
mm-hmm,
And or they're preparing. I was looking at a client's chart yesterday and I was like, this is so magical because we can see how, for example, Saturn, taskmaster, building, help us think, build structure into our life and business, can see how Saturn's been working with her and it's been really frustrating. But because she's now got this is what I stand for, this is the pulpit. Now, as it moves into her 10th house, she's ready to put that into her business and then build the structures around it. And then there was more that came along with that. And it just, she was like, oh, it's just that like
mm-hmm.
drop of the shoulders kind of thing. Oh, this is what's happening. And it makes sense versus, she goes and tries to build things, create a new project. That's not where the energy is. That will come. And so it's a lot of times a permission slip to be like, lean into this, lean away from that. Because when we do that, we're going to create more momentum, which is and also feel more fulfilled. I think that's also huge, right? When you're leaning into your human design, your strengths, like, all of these pieces, there's just so much more ease, confidence, permission, all those things, which is at the core of what I do. And the reason I do it is because I want people doing their work in the world and not burned out, not overwhelmed. One of the things I do a lot of is permission to rest. Like these are rest periods. This is, we can we can move the meter more by doing less.
Okay, yeah, that part right there is probably like my favorite thing about astrology and human design, and why I use them personally and, even in my coaching is because of that part. It doesn't have to be as hard as we make it. And most of the time it's because we're going against these cycles or how we're literally designed. And we get the feedback and we still, push through that. I see it all the time. I work with a lot of creative
Hmm.
entrepreneurs and photographers who are burnt out, or they're, a lot of creatives too. The creative brain, I call it the spicy brain, because we're either diagnosed or undiagnosed with ADHD, but we're somewhere on this spectrum of like squirrel. And a lot of us are very, very prone as creatives, because we're also artists, to be super, judgmental about ourselves and art, because it's like very the work is so close to us, right? Like, please love what I
Hmm.
do, kind of thing. Like, whether you're a photographer or whatever kind of artist you are, there's this sense of like, oh God, it's such a vulnerable thing to do, is to create something and then to put it out into the world and be like, okay, I just have to sort of like let that go. But it's hard to do that. And then we also fall prey to comparison. That's a really, really, really big one. Is like,
Huge.
oh, so and so is doing it like this, and she looks like she's just killing it. And we kind of get all in our head. And for me, astrology, human design, those two specifically help me basically stay in my lane, right? It's like, stay in
Yeah,
your lane, focus on what you need to focus on. And it helps redirect me in those
absolutely.
moments of like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. That's not even like, I don't even need to be thinking about that right now, kind of thing.
Right, right.
And
Yeah.
I just love that.
Yeah. I say I get permission. It's a big
Yes.
permission slip. I'll tell people, be like, oh, I have to do social media. And I'm like, no, you don't. Your chart says you are a networker.
Mm-hmm.
Go out, get around people, and go do the thing. Because that's where, but when you're over here spending your most precious resource, time, your own energy, you're draining the battery because you're putting your energy into something that isn't, it's going to be way harder. Could you do it? Of course. We can force our way through things, but like you said, eventually you're taxing your adrenal system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference between cyclical planning or, and, you know, the industrial model that tells us we can run at, the same speed all week long, which is just so not true.
Yeah.
All week long, all year long, this idea of the 40-hour work week and all of those things. So same idea here, like when you're throwing energy in to an area that's, and we know it, right? I consider myself an intuitive as well. I say when people work with me, they get all three. They get the
Yeah.
strategist, the astrologer, and the intuitive. And sometimes I'll be like, here's what I see for you. But I know, and I'll know that I'm leaning into something or doing something that is out of sync with
Mm-hmm.
how I'm wired. And but it's the shoulds, the land of the shoulds, especially in entrepreneurship. I think that land of shoulds lives like right outside our door, right? All the time. And I feel like astrology is the way I pull people back from there on the regular.
Yes. No, for sure. I'm definitely in that camp of like, okay, get back, like I said, get back in your lane and kind of get back to what's important for me and my timing and what's coming for me. So, thinking about that, I do want to touch on a little bit because you've talked a little bit about this already in different places, but like you said before, the market itself, like it is, there's some cyclical things that we can be paying attention to, all of us, no matter what our personal transits and all that are. Obviously, it's going to be more impactful if we know all that. But what are some of the things that you do see coming late, like especially for later in 2026? Because it's already been quite wild.
It has been quite wild. We are in unprecedented times. There's many things that are occurring we've never lived through. And if you think about the planets in layers, we have personal planets. So those are the ones that are closest to Earth. They are going to impact us the most because, like the moon, as I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure most of your audience is female, the moon, we know how that impacts us and cycle our own internal cycle, physical cycles, right? The tides. And then, you get the moon, the sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars. All of those have a direct impact. And I track those for The sun, where are people's attention? Mercury, how do people want to be communicated to? Mars, what are people motivated by? Venus, what are people opening their wallet for right now? What do they desire? And those from a day in, day out, how are you marketing in the month of May? Those are powerful transits to follow. And I break those down in my Substack, in my paid side of it, in what I call success scopes to make it really simple. What are we focused on? How do you, you know, handle it? But that's like the next layer down. What I call the umbrella layer is something that occurs in marketing, financial cycles, and real estate all follow the same 18-month cycle. And astrologically, you'll hear people talk about the shift of the nodes. The nodes are in your own chart, it's your purpose. It's the thing you're working towards this time around that you're consider like we call it the north and the south
Yeah.
node. So think of north like you're reaching for something. South node, we come in with this suitcase full of gifts that we need to empty a little bit out of so we can add some new things in this time around. So personally, we each have that placement. Collectively, we move through these nodal shifts every 18 months, and they bring a new energy of what people are wanting, desiring, reaching for, and what people are done with. If
Mm-hmm.
your audience has been around for a minute, the one that I think is the most tangible that people have can wrap whenever I talk about it, people are like, oh yeah, I get that. Not the cycle we're in right now, but the cycle before. So 2020, back at 23, all of 24, we were in Aries energy. We're Aries North Node, Libra South Node. What does that even mean? Don't worry about the language. Aries. Aries energy was like, get me the band-aid, fix my problem, and do it right now. Like, how can I get the quick win? How can I get what I need? And so on sales pages, on, your CTA, your call to action had to be like just so dialed in. People were not going to read down a third of the page to figure out how to work with you. That was just not going to happen. And it was the first time moving away from Libra. Libra is the polished, the beautiful branding, all the photography work you all do. But it was the first time we saw Google Doc sales pages
Mm-hmm.
because people were like, I don't need all that. I don't need this long form sales page that came 2 cycles before when we were in Gemini and everybody needed all the data and we could sell a course like nobody's business. So now people learned how to get what they need quickly, get the band-aid. And then this current cycle we're in, it's like, okay, I know how to get what I need, but I want something longer. I want something more aligned for me. People are learning to trust themselves. A lot of what's being said or has been said for the past year is, that we're in a trust recession. I have a problem with that language because I think it's disrespectful of buyers. I'm calling it the wisdom era, the wiser buyer era.
Mm-hmm.
People are connecting their head and their heart. They are learning to trust themselves, not just what it says on the page, not just the receipts in the book that somebody shares with you. And I think that's a good thing. Each cycle we gain wisdom and knowledge, and then we add it on to the next cycle. So these 18-month shifts, the next one is coming in August of this year and will take us all the way through 27. And this one is Aquarius energy, which coincides with a lot of other things. We have Pluto in Aquarius, which is a generational change. I think of Aquarius as the I within the we. So if you remember nothing else from this, like think about that energy. We're moving away from Leo. Leo is the performer. Leo is the celebrity. So I'm talking about this cycle as the guide by your side energy. So for creatives out there, if you're in that how can you be co-creative with your clients, right? You're still doing the creation, but what is that co-creative process that makes your clients feel part of and connected to you, that you're not this untouchable artist, but you're somebody that they relate to, that they want to be around, that they who's going to walk them through the process, who's going to make sure that they feel seen and taken care of and that they're part of your world. And that's a big shift from where we've been. This is going to be the fall of gurus have been falling off the
Mm-hmm.
pedestals. And I think, this is kind of the nail in the coffin. Um, and so it's those bigger cycles. If you're tracking those, that's the filter of how you're showing up, how you're positioning your offer, what people are looking for from you. And that if you did nothing else, don't worry. If you didn't worry about the personal planets, if you didn't have success scopes, like it's okay if you understand that guide by your side energy and you lean into how can you create that within your, and it doesn't mean you change your offer. It doesn't mean you change how you
Right.
do things. It's how you talk about it, right?
Yeah. It's the approach,
The approach.
right? Like, and so, yeah. So just to kind of dig a little bit more into that so that we really kind of understand what that means. And again, this will be more specific if you know your own stuff. I'm just disclaimer there,
Of course.
as always. But we're moving into this phase just in general, like collectively,
Correct.
where the consumer, where just everyone in general, and also I've seen this on social, like just people just like it's just changing across, like everything is just changing
Yeah.
so quickly. AI is a big piece of this, and so which is all that Aquarius stuff too, like you're talking about. But okay, so moving into this, especially later this year, things to think about would be how can I, and I know that I've talked about this a lot anyway, just with my own coaching people, but in general, make how we can actually invite, let's say, our potential clients and customers to feel more a part of what we're doing. Like it's more of like like you said, like walking beside them, showing them. I don't know, the energy just feels more nurturing. Is that the right word?
Yes,
Okay.
for sure, for sure. I think of Aquarius as the I within the we. We had to learn through
Mm,
like Aries energy how to take care of ourselves, how to get our needs met. And then in Pisces energy, it's like, well, what is the dream? What's the vision I
yeah.
have? Who am I under the surface? Do I trust my own inner wisdom? And now we can show up as the individual human within the collective and hold our own. And you
Okay.
can see that happening on the world stage, right? You can really see people showing up. And I just did a forecast workshop on this that also lives in the paid side of my Substack and talking about the cycles in the past. Like, so back to like
Yeah.
the data over drama. So this happens basically, they're 18-month cycles. It goes through 12 zodiac signs, right, to get back around. The last time the North Node was in Aquarius was 0708. So
Yeah.
0708 was a rough go. And I'm not trying to sugarcoat it for people either. Like, we don't know, you know, financial markets, this is the low point of the cycle. That doesn't mean we're not making money. It doesn't mean we're not, but the markets, the volatility is not done. We have to figure out all these pieces to build a new structure when we get into Capricorn. So, you know, and I did one of the slides in my presentation went all the way back. Like I, I'm kind of this is the things I geek out on, Renee. Like one night in the middle of the night, I'm like, I wonder if the North Node in Aquarius happened during World Wars, depressions,
Right.
the market crash. It did.
Yeah.
Like the stock market crash. Like, but sometimes it's a crash, sometimes it's a reverberation. So this is not from what we can see, we never know how it's exactly going to play out.
Right.
But I just think it's this beautiful energy of bringing people together and saying, what do I need to be successful and who do I want to be around in
Hmm.
that world? Like, what is that community?
Yeah.
One of the core pieces of this, I think, is community. So it doesn't mean you have to build your own community. Um, you can still have a one-on-one service and make people feel like they're part of your community, right? Because it's an energy you create, it's a container you create, it's how you show up, I think the whole onboarding, offboarding, bringing people into your world, that especially in the land of AI. Like I'm also talking about this as human first. There's a lot of that conversation. Like I was just reading some stuff on Uranus and Gemini, which is a whole nother piece,
Yeah.
and the AI side of things. Like the gift of AI is going to be us finding our authentic voice. And so that people can discern, is that you? And again, this is that who do I want to be hanging out with? Who do I want taking my pictures, doing my art,
Yeah.
whatever that gift is that you're bringing, they're choosing based on you.
Mm. Yes. Okay.
More than when back in Aries, they might have chosen on price
Yeah.
or like who could get me the quickest response. Like they didn't dig in to the who. So what does that change on your sales page? Like I need to know who you are. I need to get a sense of you. Maybe that means more video, right? Or longer form articles so that people can feel you and know it's not AI generated.
Right. Or just easily duplicated by, the thing I hear a lot, especially from photographers, is like, oh my God, there's just so many photographers now. And, they get kind of wrapped up in that and how, there's so many. This could be true for any market, by the way. There is so many of them and they're so cheap. And I'm trying to be, a more luxury price point. And, how do I get people to like understand that and see the value? So a lot of it, I feel like, I think that those of us who have been already trying to do this, even like in this other
Mhm.
marketing cycle, like that's one of the main things. Like if your price point is on the higher end, no matter what you do as a creative business, I feel like you've probably should have been doing some of this anyway, because that word authenticity, right, has been thrown around so
Right.
much in the last few years. Because how are you standing out? Like, how are you differentiating yourself from the myriad of all of these other people who do what you do, quote unquote, right?
Right.
But how are you showing and getting people to feel that what you do is different? That I think is going to be
Huge.
like the deal. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because I can go have certain pictures just created online, but there's
for sure.
nothing replaces being in person with an amazing photographer who's pulling my essence out of me.
Right.
Nothing. But how do you convey that to your
Right.
audience?
And that comes with your own personal information and transits. And
Right.
so, for instance, like for me, you know I have like a lot of Virgo in my chart, right? Like I have a stellium in Virgo, but it's in my 12th house. And
And the 12th
and
house, really.
my
Different. Yeah.
my south node is in Virgo and my north node is Pisces. And so the last few years have been very interesting for me, but because of that, and okay, yeah, I'm so Virgo, but it being in my south node, it's like I'm quote unquote supposed to be leaving that behind and evolving into this more Piscean. And it's so interesting because all of my close friends, women, my entire life, they're either Pisces or women, Sagittarius, but mostly Pisces. And it's just so interesting to me how we're attracted to what, you know what I mean? Like how,
What we need. Yeah, what
right.
we're moving towards, right? Yeah, I have a Pisces North Node as well. Mine's in a different area. And I have, a stellium and Aries in my 12th house. So what we're talking about,
Ah,
12th house. So if you look at a wheel, and there's something I do want to just caution people about when you're
okay.
looking at what I call infotainment astrology, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like
Sure.
there's, but in order to give people collectively, like to just share general information, they have to take that wheel and divide it into 12 equal parts, which means when you read those things, it may not be accurate for you.
Right.
So if someone may say, oh, Pisces is doing this and moving through this area of life when that's not true for you because your house is of a different size.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we do it with a different, that's whole signs versus Placidus, if you want to
Yeah.
know technically what the term is different. But so the 12th house is the end of the wheel. It's actually Pisces in collective energy, and it's where things go to dissolve so that we're ready to move into the next cycle. It's the things that we're working on internally that we don't have to talk about, but it's what people come to you for. Like they
Mhm.
see it under the surface. It's not the thing we sell. It's just the who we are, and the thing we're always working on under the surface. And to give you a practical example of how this shows up. So I mentioned earlier one of my success planets is Mars. Well, Mars is going to be for the next, we're recording this at the end of April. From now until the middle of June, it is going through my 12th house. So I said to my mindset coach, I said, you know what? I want to be really intentional and break down the things I need to support my visibility, my brand, all those things. Like there's beliefs in there that are ready to be worked on, right? And that inner work. So we set up a plan so that I'm being really intentional. That's leveraging my success planet, setting me up for success, knowing it's an internal time that my motivation is going to be lower. I'm not going to beat up on myself because my motivation, and when we have a lot of planets in the 12th house, by the way, we learn to do regardless, which can lead us into burnout if we're not careful. So that's one way. Like when I see those things for a client, I'm like, okay, hey, this is happening in your career house. Like, let's go. Like, let's go do the thing. Or this is where things are occurring for you. That's how we can leverage the astrology in a really beautiful way.
It's so fun. It's so interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
and yeah, I know it can feel like a lot to people who are like, okay, that's, but it the beauty of it is that, like you said, yes, there's a lot of fun things online, but to keep in mind that it won't be specific to you unless you actually are working with someone to do that intentionally. And just like anything else, there's a lot of different people for different people.
Yeah.
So, the key is to like vibe and find someone that you can really like, oh, that I understand that in a way that maybe I didn't with, someone else or whatever. And that's really kind of what it comes down to. But the reason I really wanted to do an episode about this is, it is such a big part of my life, but it's not something that I don't like talk about it necessarily all the time, right? Like it's just like I've just always been this way. It's always been something that I've been interested in and I value and I find fun and interesting. I have no desire to ever become an astrologer, right? You know what I mean? Like I don't want to go through all of that. But I see like what you do is so different and unique than even just like other astrologers that I follow, and I love that. It's just like anything else. It's like, oh, I know if I'm looking for business cycles and like kind of like really getting into the nitty gritty of like what I need to be doing for my business and like how I'm going to be showing up for my visibility wise, like I'm going to go to Sheri for that. You know what I mean? So tell people, I know that you've been really kind of hanging out a lot over on Substack and really putting a lot of your
Yeah.
time and energy into that platform. I am also delving into that
Yeah.
a lot
Yes.
recently. So tell me a little bit about how you like it and how that's working, and then how people can find you there because you have a free and paid version.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a place where I feel like I can do longer form content, but also, and get into a subject and do it in a way that feels, like I'm just sharing this story with people and allowing them to play along with me. One of the things that I am like one of my highest values is, making things practical and tactical for people. I can fire hose you with a lot of information. I'm really intentional with what I talk about and what I bring to the party because I want you to be able to use it in your business. Like I want
Mm-hmm.
it to make sense to you because most astrology just goes over people's head. And I care. Like I, did this forecast workshop and then I'm giving you checklists and then I'm going to take the next 3 months and walk you through how to update your content and your sales page. Like I'm the practical, tactical girl, and
That's
Substack's
awesome.
given me a place to do that and to build a different kind of audience. It is very Aquarius energy to me, and I can't remember when the platform was birthed. That's another
Mm,
like we whole sidebar. Your business has a chart.
yeah.
Your business chose you. And when I look at the charts together, it's fascinating always because there's a relationship there. The business is you could run a human design chart for a business too, right?
Sure.
Like it, anyway. So the free side, come play, come just get us taste, and that will, give you. I'm always trying to talk about like the where we are now and how to work with that. And then on the paid side, that's where I'm doing the monthly forecasts, the bigger picture workshops, like the Wisdom Era handoff, as I'm calling it, because we've got now till August. All those resources will live there. Like even if you join in August, you're going to have access to all that. So that's the place where I go deeper, where I will do 3 or 4 forecast workshops a year. I'm actually toying with some other things. I'm actually thinking about bringing in a couple of people we know for copy on the copy side to be like, okay, what does this look like in real life?
Mm-hmm.
Here's a Pisces page. Here's an Aquarius page. Like, what does that look like? So, yeah, I think it's very interesting because I think platforms in general, um, if we think about moving away from, right, Leo, Instagram is very Leo. I think
Oh
Instagram is
yeah.
going to go through a huge change. It's going to be, whereas Substack is creating community. It is, you can be part of someone's publication, et cetera. You can be, and there's a lot of artists and creatives there, which I love. Like I'm just enjoying being over there and opening my mind to more. I want to be a thought leader in this space. Like I know you're a thought leader in your space, Renee. Like that's my intention, like to bring the gifts that astrology has for business. We used to pay tens of thousands of dollars in corporate for market data. That was yesterday's data. It was what scanned through the register. Whereas we can use astrology to look at what's coming. We don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but we have a good idea and we
Mm-hmm.
can pull. So,
That and it's so cool. It's like
yeah.
honestly like such a slept on in that respect.
Yeah.
It's very slept on. It really is. And I think it's slept on because most people just don't understand it in that way. You know what I mean? Like I can see how it would be overwhelming and all, and I know a lot about it. Like I still get to that place where if I try and do it myself, I'm like, okay, never mind. I can't make my brain do that right now. You know what I mean? So
It's
I
like an
get it.
onion. There's layers. And even
Yes.
as you know, in my certification program and my master's program, each of us has a different lens. And my mentor said to me, if you could do only one thing with it, what would you do?
Mm,
Because you can't be I don't think you can be a generalist, at least I mean, you can be somebody who just reads charts, but even that, you could have 3 people read your chart and you'll get different wisdom from each one of them.
100%.
So, which is a gift. So trust your intuition, like trust who you ask to support you in that. And, you know, and then, my goal is that it's data driven enough that anybody can use it. And then when we are on the personal side of the lane, we're going down how you're wired and designed. And even within success scopes, I break it out. So your success planet is in there to tell you,
Right.
what's up for you this month. Now I'm not looking at your chart, but it's a nice way for $27 a month to get, how to market and a little bit about where to focus for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cheat code. I love it.
Totally. That's what I try to do.
Uh,
Cheat sheet.
yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to put the link for your Substack below so people can check that out themselves. But I mean, I could I could spend hours chatting about all things astrology. Like, I mean, it's one of my favorite things to talk about, but I really appreciate you coming on and, presenting it in a way that I feel like really makes it feel more accessible to just the
Mm.
average person out there. But also, I think that we also were able to go a little bit even deeper, for those people who are like, okay, yeah, I'm already into this and I want to know more. So this was awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
All right. So, what are we walking away with after that awesome episode? I don't know about you, but I think the first takeaway for me would be, timing as data, looking at timing as that, as information, and not just some like random thing that we can't control. So, what I want you to really get from today's episode is that astrology is not just some personality quiz. or a horoscope you read when you're bored or frustrated or going through something in your life. It's really a data set. And you can actually track cycles and windows and rhythms that are really specific to you, not just to some generic subset on the internet. So if you feel like you're doing all the things right and you feel like you are following the path you were put here to follow, but things aren't necessarily lining up or working out, it's very possible that it could just be the timing. And working with an astrologer or looking into your astrology and looking at the timing and the patterns could make a really big difference for you. And the second one for me is that your business doesn't have to and really shouldn't run on somebody else's season. Okay. So this one's a really big one because of all the stuff that I've talked about on this episode. We've all internalized this idea that growth happens in Q4, right? Launches happen in January. And if you didn't book your best year in November, you missed a window. Like there's always like this sense of I have to book out earlier. I have to, fill my calendar. But Sheri's whole framework says, no, you have your own peak visibility windows and your own rest seasons and your own momentum cycles. And when you build your plan around those things instead of just a cultural calendar that everybody kind of follows, you stop fighting yourself and you start actually flowing from your true center. And that is not woo-woo stuff, right? So it's logic and data, but you have to reframe it in that way. And I really think that today's episode did a good job of doing that for you guys. So if it did get something moving for you or make you start thinking about things in a different way, you're kind of thinking about, oh yeah, that's why that maybe didn't happen, or maybe I should look into what that cycle is going to be for me later this year in 2026. I'm going to put the link to go find Sheri on Substack down below. That is where she is spending most of her time. And I know that you're going to get a lot of really good information from her just from reading her free Substack post. So definitely do that. And hey, if this episode struck a chord with you or you feel like it really could benefit a friend of yours, make sure you send it to them. As always, we would love to hear from you and what you thought about the show, whether that's on Instagram at Renee Bowen. You can always shoot me a DM, or on Substack. I'm also over there myself, so I'll make sure I list that too below, because I definitely want to start hanging out there more. So I need more people to follow and to chat with over there. And of course, reviews are always like the highlight of my life. So if you want to leave the show a review, you can do it at ratethispodcast.com/Renee Bowen. I appreciate you for being here, especially if you are a longtime listener. Thank you so much. I love hearing your feedback about the show. It really is truly a labor of love. I love doing this show. I didn't think I was going to love it as much, but I really do. So if you love it, let me know. And I hope you guys have a really, really awesome rest of your week. Love you. Bye.